Okay, so last year we did an Android UI ranking video and you guys loved it. But whenever a new phone is launched, we talk about camera, processor, hardware, specs, everything. But the most underrated feature is software and UI, because you buy a phone once, but the experience stays lifetime. And today we are making it more grander. We have this tier, and as always, GOAT is for greatest of all time, the best in all aspects. Then we have very solid UI, which is better in most of the aspects, but in one of them. Then we have did the job UI, which is better in one or two aspects but average in others. And finally, you know it, I know it, that's the bottom, and you should avoid it. First up, Xiaomi's MIUI. Now, of course, this wasn't the best year for Xiaomi. They did launch very few phones, but important ones. Plus, there were a lot of issues with the company's administration, so that makes it in did the job tier. But another major thing happened this year for Xiaomi, Poco and Redmi phones was motherboard dead or camera dead issues after the update. We had numerous tweets on the issue, and the incident got so big that Poco had to give 6-month extended warranty on Poco X3 Pro. And it was not just Poco. Redmi Note 10, Redmi Note 10 Pro had camera issues after the MIUI 13 update. Redmi India had to issue a public tweet that they will recognize the issue and will offer free replacements to all users on Xiaomi Service Center. And in fact, the SNL Live that we do every Saturday at 9 PM, we met one of you guys which had the same exact motherboard dead issue on Poco X2. And even if you somehow say, well, leave all of that, Android 13 on Xiaomi phones is far due. Like MIUI 14 has just been announced in China as of now, a whole 4 months after the launch of official Android 13. And let's see when it arrives on Xiaomi phones in India. So I think now it's only fair if we pull down Xiaomi to you know it, I know it tier. Moving on to Vivo and iQOO's Funtouch OS. Now, last year we kept them in the you know it, I know it tier. But since then we tried lots of Vivo and iQOO phones, flagship Vivo phones, and I feel Funtouch OS has improved quite a lot compared to what it was before. It is more clean, stock Android like right now. Like the last Vivo phone we tried, Vivo V25, and now they have adapted that colorful Material You theme from Android 12, and even a lot of iQOO phones have received the Android 13 update. See, this is iQOO's roadmap for Android 13 update, and even Vivo released the same timeline for Android 13 update. So the point is, by first quarter 2023, all mid-range and flagship Vivo iQOO phones will receive Android 13 update. I still feel Funtouch OS is kind of playing catch-up. Like if you compare it to Color OS or One UI, there are not many features in the OS. So it's more or less like okay-ish, but we can upgrade it to did the job tier this year. Now another entry in did the job tier has to be OnePlus's OxygenOS. There you go. Unlike 2021, 2022 was an okay-ish year for OxygenOS. Like people have now accepted OnePlus OxygenOS is now Oppo's ColorOS. OnePlus also released OxygenOS 13 just few days ago for their flagship phones, the OnePlus 10 and OnePlus 9 series. They also have some really cool features like Spotify always on display where you can see album art. There is also food delivery and map directions on lock screen. It's really useful. OxygenOS still says they are different from ColorOS. And funny thing, the entire website design and features of ColorOS and OxygenOS 13 are the same. OnePlus recently promised 4 years of Android updates and 5 years of security updates, and they took this decision because of the community. But it's just for certain 2023 flagships. Let's move on, but for now, it's in did the job tier. And talking about OnePlus disappointing, there was one company which really shined in 2022. Motorola and Motorola's software My UX. 2022 has been the comeback year for Motorola, and earlier Motorola phones were known for just stock Android and ad-free, but now it has become a value for money phone. And also My UX had a lot of features like ready for PC where you could pair your phone with a laptop and use it as a webcam, send files, open Android apps on your PC. Even most of the budget Android Motorola phones have received the Android 12 update. Like the Moto G71 we have, it has Android 12. But updates are the same place where Motorola lacked a bit. Like Moto G series in budget from 2021 will only receive one Android update. That's it. I think updates are somewhere where Motorola can do a bit better. Last year it was in the very solid tier, but I think it would be fair if we move it up into the GOAT tier. First entry of 2022. And we'll be moving to Nothing OS, but let's quickly address Oppo's ColorOS. We'll put it into very solid territory. I still feel ColorOS decides the features of OxygenOS and Realme UI, and it is far more responsive and bug-free. And even Realme UI is more or less ColorOS. And we tried the Realme 10 Pro Plus, which had Realme UI 4. It looks really good, but one major thing is ads. When you download an app, there is app scanning. Even inside the official Realme Files app, you have ads. Personally, I think people are getting less bothered by ads, but my job is to point it out. So both Realme UI and ColorOS go to very solid tier. And the next entry is one of the most hyped company in 2022. Nothing. And when we tried the Nothing phone, the UI was more or less stock Android with some features here and there were a lot of bugs. But with time, the company listened to feedback and you had update after update. There are still problems. Like see here, I get a missed call on this phone and I just tap on callback, nothing happens. And this is just one of the few bugs. I do understand that Nothing is a new company and Android 13 is promised by the first half of 2023, very delayed, but Nothing OS actually deserves nothing. Yeah, for now, it's did the job tier. Now, before we move to the Pixel, let's take up iOS 16. And usually we put iOS in GOAT tier, but we use the iPhone 14 Pro and more or less the iPhones this year were okayish. Like iOS 16 got some of the latest features like always on display, live activities, etc. But there were bugs. So I would place it still in very solid tier because of updates, features and everything. Could also go down to did the job tier, but let's keep it very solid for Mrinal. And the last entry in this tier is Pixel UI. Android 13 had literally so few features or changes to talk about, it could be named Android 12.1. You now have the option to set different language to apps, like you can have your phone in English but set Google Chrome in Hindi. Very few features, but mostly the phones are stable as of now. Now we have been using the Pixel 6a and Pixel 6 as daily driver and they work really well, but honestly Android 14 should either have more features or Google should start doing 2-year Android updates. So in all fairness, Google's Android 13 deserves did the job tier. And finally, One UI. Like, does anyone remember the old clunky TouchWiz era of Samsung? Anyone? Now, from that to One UI as of now offers the most 4 years of Android updates to their flagship, even mid-range A series phones. And now you'd be like, Pratik, what would we do with 4 years of Android updates with A series phone? Well, the hardware might or might not be capable for 4 years of Android updates, but the point is, you wouldn't be forced to sell your phone because you don't receive updates anymore. Anyways, we recently did a video on Samsung's One UI, and One UI with Android 13 dropped on almost all the budget mid-range and flagship phones. And there were some useful features like voice focus in WhatsApp calls, phone calls, so it uses AI to cancel noise around you and make better phone calls. And there's a feature where you can scan phone numbers, copy-paste text directly from a photo or camera app. And Samsung are one of the few phones that let you record call without announcement. And funny thing, we rated One UI as GOAT last year in 2021 and things are going even better in 2022. So there it goes. So that was the list, and irrespective of whatever you might say, I would say overall it was a good year for Android. Like right now there are more than 24% users with Android 12. The data for Android 13 is not out yet. And just for perspective, in 2019 only 10% users were on the latest Android update. So things are getting better, but still far from iOS. If you had to pick the best UI according to you, let us know your GOAT winner. On that note, this is Pratik signing off. See you in the next video. Pew pew.